Ladies and gentlemen, we ask that you please take your seats at this time as the program will begin momentarily.
Within the world of research, there are many different types of research. It is important to realize that each type of research has its own merits, its own purpose, and aims. As with many things, each type of research also has its advantages and disadvantages, and most importantly, its own set of rules. These rules describe the procedures that must be followed to carry out the research and how its results must be interpreted. Violating these rules means that the results of your research are unreliable or even invalid. It's therefore important that you use the appropriate research method and follow the principles of such a method when you carry out your research, else you're simply wasting your time. In this lecture, I will discuss the types of research that you may come across in your research journal on a more global level. Typically within engineering, you come across two main classes of research: fundamental research, also known as theoretical research, and applied research. Let's start off with discussing fundamental research. This type of research is an investigation on basic principles and reasons for occurrence of a particular event, process or phenomenon. An example can be the study of natural phenomena. Its main characteristics are: it seeks to generalize a problem to a bigger whole and aims at basic processes, not at problem solving. It tries to explain the why of why things happen, and it seeks to find all the facts. It extracts scientific and logical explanations, and it builds frontiers of knowledge. Its outcomes often form the basis of applied research. Now, applied research. In applied research, we solve problems employing established and accepted theories and principles. It can be characterized by that it studies individual and specific cases without generalizing. It looks for variables which create the differences we were looking for. It attempts to explain how things can be altered or changed, and it attempts to correct facts which are problematic. Although these two types of research differ greatly, each of these can be subdivided in three global types of research which look at the variables studied: quantitative research, qualitative research, and mixed method research. Let me shortly describe each of them. Quantitative research is characterized by numbers and mathematics. It's inevitably iterative, evaluating evidence. Its results are often presented in tables and graphs and are conclusive. Much research in engineering is of this nature. It tends to investigate the what, the where, and the when. Qualitative research is non-numerical, more descriptive and argumentative in nature. It aims to get the meaning, feeling, and description of situations and is exploratory in nature. It tends to investigate the why and the how. Mixed method is effectively a combination of elements of the two previous methods. Its data is also mixed in nature. Within each of these, many different types of studies exist, of which the most important ones are exploratory studies, descriptive studies, relational studies, and causal studies. Exploratory studies identify key issues and key variables. For instance, a literature search to investigate what methods to use for a subsequent study. Descriptive studies are there to study the what and answer questions such as, what is this? An example is a description of the proportion of faulty and non-faulty components in a batch of electrical equipment. Relational studies investigate relationships between two or more variables. Think of the relationship between force and elongation when you suspend weights from a spring. With variables, we mean here an entity that can take on different values, for instance the weight and size of different test specimens, but also a non-quantitative form as an attribute, for instance broken or non-broken. Within variables, we distinguish between dependent and independent variables. An independent variable is the variable you or nature manipulates, whilst the dependent variable is that which you presume to be affected. For instance, the amount of sunlight, independent, that affects the paint color of a car, dependent. Relationships in a relational study can take many different forms, such as linear, negative, curvilinear, as well as no relationship whatsoever. Finally, causal studies, which aim to find out if one or more variables cause or affect one or more outcome variables. For instance, does the weight of an aircraft affect the performance of such an aircraft? In causal studies, it is important not to confuse causation with correlation. In correlation, there is a relation of some sort, but without determination of cause.